nice warm weekend, or warmer. I don't know about warm. I guess it's all relative. I'm just looking at the list of participants. It looks like we still have a few more folks that need to join, and then we will get started.
Good morning.
Morning, Paul. How are you today?
Doing great.
Ron. Okay, Diane, should we start with the roll call?
Sure. Teddy Bickelli.
Present.
Okay, I can hear you. Yvonne Caraveau.
Present.
Thank you, Yvonne. I can hear you. Nolan Cowthen.
Here.
Dale Cook. Don't think Dale is on. Steve Fensky.
Good morning.
Morning, Steve. Steve Georgie.
I'm here.
Thanks, Steve. Jason Hollanday.
Present.
Thanks, Jason. Mark Johnson.
Here I am.
Ah, you're here. You've been quiet. Bernadine Joslin.
Here.
Hey, Bernadine. Brian Crambier.
Good morning.
Micah Myers.
Here.
Morning, Micah. Teresa Sunday.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Jim Wycombe.
Good morning.
Morning, Jim. Paul Wirtz.
Good morning.
Morning, Paul. Dave Wolf.
Good morning.
Morning, Dave. Okay, so we're just missing Dale, and he sent an email that he had a meeting come up that he had to take, but I think he'll try to join for part.
Okay, that's good. And when he comes, we will welcome him at that time. If there's others that are not on the task force but on the call, if you don't have to, but if you'd like to announce yourselves, you could do so now.
Hi, I can just say a quick hello. I'm a community member calling in. Teresa, who is also a Sika resident, gave me the video call link. So I'm glad to just join in and hear some of these conversations. But my name is Benya Kraus. I'm the executive director of Lead for Minnesota, headquartered in my family's hometown in Waseca. We're doing some, and I see some few familiar faces. Hello, Jason. And we're just excited to get to learn a little bit more about the broadband initiatives at the state level. We have a few fellows that will be working on some of those projects in the fall. So eager to just listen in, and thanks for having me and having this be a public viewing. So thanks so much, and just want to let you know I'm here.
Awesome. Good morning, Benya. Welcome to the meeting. Glad to have you.
Hi, Benya.
Hey there.
Okay. Any others who'd like to announce themselves?
This is Anna Borat with the Cable Association. Good morning.
Morning, Anna. How are you today?
Good. It's warm outside.
Yeah, no, see the sun. It looks warm. It looks like it's 32, like what, 30 degrees or 40 degrees more than it was last week. That's nice.
Chuck Ackman's here on the Klobuchar staff.
Good morning, Chuck.
Ashley Schweitzer from Hennepin County.
Morning, Ashley.
Bree Mackey with Senator Tina Smith.
Morning, Bree.
Christina Diaz here with Congresswoman Angie Craig's office.
Good morning, Christina. Okay. I'm not hearing any others. So, let's quickly go through the agenda for the day. Here, I'm going to share my screen real quick. There we go. So obviously we started out with kind of just welcome, some kind of intros here. Well, we did some intros and 10 introductions, and then we'll approve the minutes from the last meeting. And then at 10:15, it might be a little bit sooner than that, but we'll have Devin Bowdry give us an update on the 2020, what's going on with the legislation for 2021. So be excited to hear some of the updates there. 10:25, the next topic, Brian has graciously agreed to give us an overview of rural electric co-ops and what's happening with broadband there, and specifically the experiences with My Energy, so excited to have that. Tina May from Land O'Lakes is going to come in and talk about the American Connection projects. This was another topic that was brought up as some folks wanted to hear about that. And after that, we'll take a break, but depending on how timing goes, we might do the break before or after that topic. And then the last portion of our meeting will be dedicated to the task force organization. We'll kind of discuss the subgroups. We kind of mentioned, we had a discussion around what those should be and maybe what the topics could be last time. Based on all the feedback and the discussion we had in previous meetings, we got together and organized the information, and also Diane had picked out preferences of who wants to be on which subgroup. And so we'll have a little bit of a report out on that one. Select chairs for those subgroups. I think those also last year, Andy. And that should conclude our meeting, and then we will end with any public comments or any other business that we need to be discussed before we adjourn for today and the next meeting in March. So that's the agenda at the moment. I believe Diane has shared the meeting minutes from our last meeting. That was in the calendar, as well as she sent out an email. Were there any comments, questions, or concerns with those meeting minutes? Okay, so hearing none, I'm just gonna take the silence as group approval. If not, please state otherwise. Okay, so meeting minutes are approved. Okay, so before we turn it over to Devin, again, just a quick update on today's meeting. I know last time we went through and sort of had a list of topics we wanted to hear from different folks. That's what resulted in the agenda for today. Going forward, those recommendations I'm hoping would come from the subgroups. That's where all the information sort of can be discussed at the sort of with a few folks together, and then we can work with Diane and the Office of Broadband Development on lining up speakers for our meeting. Most of the presentations are going to be done here with the larger group, obviously. So the key for those subgroups is really organizing the information that should be shared at this larger level. But so I'll look forward to when the groups are created, what the topics will be to be discussed. But for the moment, I think we'll go with the list that we had last time, and the speakers we can get lined up for the right times and slots and all those kind of fun things. I look forward to the discussion on the subgroups. The message last time was that structure worked well when we did it last year. There were a couple of suggestions as far as having writers up front, hopefully having the ability to travel and get together face to face, which I think will be critical. So all those things, Diane has sent out a note capturing all that information. I thought she did a really nice job putting that together, and hopefully all of you had a chance to take a look at it. So that last portion of our meeting today will sort of be dedicated on flushing that out. And also, during the course of the meeting, if you have not given Diane your preferences on the 3 subgroups, please do so. Maybe even during this meeting. That way, by the time we get to that discussion, we can start to organize the subgroups and finalize that, and so we can even maybe sneak in a subgroup meeting before the next task force meeting in March. So a little bit of an update on that one. That was essentially the recap of our discussion last month in January. So with that, I will turn it over to Devin. Devin, maybe you can start to give us a little bit of an update on the what's happening with at the legislation level. And
am I coming through? Okay, am I coming through clear?
Yep, we can hear you perfect.
Perfect. So I'll start off just walking you through a handful of broadband bills that are out, and then I'll go into kind of what I've been hearing as far as a pathway for broadband legislation, and then just some general messaging I'm hearing about from both sides. So to kick it off, there is a bill out on both sides. It's House File 686 and Senate File 1304, Representative Eklund and Senator Westrom, to allow electric easements to be used for broadband. I know the task force has talked about this, and I think we'll be talking about it just after me. A bill you maybe seen come up in years prior to. I think it came out last year as well. House File 14 and Senate File 22, Representative Eklund and Senator Bach, both carrying a $120 million appropriation for the task force, for the grant program. That's the task force recommendation, and that one has bipartisan support. Probably no surprise there. Senator Westrom also has an identical bill to that, Senate File 945, just another $120 million for the program. And he also has this program, a separate bill that includes the $120 million. This is Senate File 946. It includes the $120 million for broadband, and then a separate $30 million appropriation for a pilot program that would target only unserved areas. And it would also increase the match that the program is able to provide. It would increase it to 55%, provided the applicant comes forward with a 10% match. And then the final bill is Senate File 1186. This came out just last week from Senator Draheim. It makes a small policy change to the Office of Broadband Development. Says they must collect data on wired and wireless service. And then it also has a $50 million appropriation for areas that are not covered by RDOF funds and other federal funds that are coming in. So that's what we have for broadband so far. And what I've been hearing, at least from the Senate side, is that they expect to hear, well, they will be hearing broadband on Wednesday. They'll be hearing Senate File 946, which is the $120 million plus the small pilot program. And then they will hear Senator Draheim's bill that has the $50 million for areas not covered by federal funds. So Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the Senate. I've been told that they don't expect to do any policy changes this year to the program, but you can always probably expect somebody to introduce bills regardless. But I've been assured that they don't plan to move forward with anything like that. Not clear on the House pathway yet, but they'd still like to hear more in the future about how the federal funds intersect with the program and how that's all panned out. So kind of building off that, the federal funds have been a huge topic of discussion this year. The Republican side is, given the budget situation this year, are taking a more cautious approach to how much they want to spend. They'd like to see what this RDOF funds, or what these RDOF funds do and how well that works before kind of tossing in more money. While the DFL is still putting forth the message that the need is urgent and we need to continue our state obligations to fund broadband infrastructure. And so that's about it right now. Angie and Diane have both presented in the House and Senate. They did a great job. Happy to take any questions if there are.
If you have any questions for Devin, just raise the hand feature in Teams, and I'll make sure you get some time. So the next piece, Devin, you said is this hearing at Wednesday at 3 o'clock, right?
Correct, yes. And that will be, Senator Westrom's $120 million appropriation plus the pilot program at $30 million, and then Senator Draheim's mapping plus the appropriation for areas not covered by federal funds.
Got it. Steve?
Yeah, I was curious, is there, from Diane, is there a financial impact on the plan on the proposal to collect more information, and do they provide more funding if you need it?
not sure I understand the question.
Devin mentioned Senator Draheim's bill that asks OBD to collect more information, and I'm curious if they're going to pay for it or if this has to come out of other funds that you already have.
Well, mapping is already an unfunded mandate. We can use up to 3% of the funding for the border-to-border grant program to pay for administering the program and for mapping. So, for example, in the year in 2018 when we didn't get any funding, we still had the mandate to do mapping. We do collect fixed wireless data. The cellular wireless data is harder to collect, and there's less reliability in that. What we generally get are the coverage maps that they use for their marketing. For fixed wireless, we've been a little bit reluctant to post that because what we get is the Form 477 data, which we know is overstated, and even where they can show coverage, it's not 100% that they can get to because of topography and tree coverage. We have it, we provided it for ask for it, but we don't post it on the website. So I would have to look at Draheim's bill more closely to see whether we actually have to do anything different or if they just want us to post it.
They definitely didn't include any additional funds for that.
Thank you.
And then I'll also just mention one other bill I forgot to speak on, which is the governor's bill by Senator Westrom, that's Senate File 958. So that has the $50 million appropriation from the governor's recommendation, and the chairs usually carry that as a courtesy. And I've not seen that on the House side yet either.
Devin, did you maybe want to go over some timelines, like when bills are supposed to be introduced by, the deadlines?
Yeah, second deadline just passed. I'd have to take a look and see when third deadline is coming up. Probably within the next few weeks here. And then I guess another important date, now that you jog my memory, is that on Friday is the February forecast. So that might have some implications for what the governor decides to do or recommend. Maybe there would be extra money for broadband. I haven't heard, but it sounds like the situation would be as bleak as when it started off.
And Devin, this is Diane again. At some point, this is the budget year. For people not familiar with the session, the odd numbered years are the budget years. And so, of course, everybody is putting forth bills with the projects that they want to see funded. But at some point, a complete budget has to be done, and that's where the hard decisions are made. When will that happen?
I think, they still have to come forward and kind of negotiate the targets that they want. So how much money comes through each committee or how much they get to spend. I'm pretty sure last time they spent all the money on broadband at the end. But if you remember, that was they went into special session first. There was a lapse between the end of session and the start of the next special session where they had to first agree on how much money they were going to collect in the first place. The governor had a higher amount than the Senate, and then they kind of realigned their targets in some late hours at the night. So it'll be. I think they come out with some like preliminary targets, if I remember correctly. But the House one and the Senate one could be, mismatched. So the House may have more money that they'd like to spend towards broadband, or for the committee that oversees broadband in general, than the Senate, or vice versa. Remains to be seen. But when I see those numbers, I'll be sure to let you know.
And Devin, this is Diane again. And if everybody remembers, the office was funded for 2 years. So the last time funding was discussed, other than some of the special session stuff, was in 2019. And the program's always been funded with surplus funding. So that will make the discussions even more difficult this year? Because, well, I think you said it may not be as bad as people thought. The expectation is we're still going to run a deficit, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that number has just shrank a bit, but we'll figure out for sure on Friday.
Steve Fensky, you have a question, comment?
Yeah, Devin, unless dates change on me, I think the first deadline is March 12th and the second is March 19th. Is there something else changing there that you know of? Okay.
Let me see. I know I had them saved on my calendar somewhere. Oh, yeah, that's correct. First deadline on March 20th. I have the second. Excuse me. Yep, first deadline 12th. Third deadline on April 9th.
Thank you.
Well, that's essentially, for those who don't know, just kind of like a funneling down of making sure that the communities are going forward with bills that have some sort of hope, that they're not just throwing more and more ideas out there.
Makes sense. Other questions or comments for Devin? Or any other comments from anyone on this specific topic? Okay. Thank you, Devin. Appreciate the update. We'll probably have you come. You may be a standing presenter here for the next couple meetings. Sure. The like wraps up, so just so you can give us an update on what's happening, and I think those are super helpful for us to kind of know where things are, and I think it's also promising that some of the bills introduced are following the recommendation of the task force. So I think it makes our job that much more important, that we have to make sure that we, even as we go into further years, whatever recommendation we make, just like we did last year, we spend quite a bit of time debating it and coming up with the right numbers we think are appropriate, which I think is helping a lot of folks put together the right.
So today, My Energy has 76 total employees. 33 of those are line workers. We have 43 substations, and we have 5,500 miles of electric distribution line. Just under 23,000 meters and 18,800 members. We have offices at Rushford and then also Cresco. And then we have outposts just with linemen in Caledonia, Harmony, and Spring Valley. And we also provide wholesale electricity to 11 communities. We definitely meet the definition of a rural electric co-op because we average less than 4 members per mile of line. The big thing that has changed in our industry is a lot with the technology. We have what's called advanced metering infrastructure, and it's a meter like you see pictured here on the right. These meters register data on an hourly basis, and you've seen that we've got roughly over 18,000 of these. They're reporting hourly data back, and they have to do that because we have some members that are on special time of use rates. You probably heard a little bit of the challenges that we had a couple weeks ago or even a week ago with the excess demand. What this is doing is with those special rates, managing those demands and offering special rates. We also have what's called an outage management system, and what that is when one of these meters no longer receives power from our distribution line, it reports back to our electric co-op, so we know that there's an outage. So if you have you and your neighbors and everybody else all on a circuit that notifies us that there's an outage, that helps our linemen pinpoint where the outage is. So it's an advanced outage management system to help dictate where the power outages are, and our linemen are in the field with iPads, which can actually help pinpoint where the cause of the outage is. In addition to that, we have what's called supervisory data control acquisition, better known as Scada. And what it is, it's a computer monitoring system that's looking at all of our data, looking at electronic devices, breakers, regulators to make sure that we're fulfilling the needs that we have as an electric utility. So we have energy management systems. Again, we talked a little bit that we can send out a signal and control maybe somebody's electric water heater during those critical peak periods to save demand. We also have commercial and industrial customers that have special time of use rates that can also reduce their energy usage. GIS mapping, I told you we had 5,500 miles of electric distribution line and a lot of infrastructure, underground cabinets, street lights, you name it. Every one of those devices has a GPS point on it, and it's plotted in our mapping system, as you can kind of see here on the right of a small subdivision. Add to that another layer, we have mobile workforce management. All of our vehicles have AVL, so then we can see where our linemen are at in the country, how close they are to restoring an outage, or if we get an outage, we can look at our mapping system and find out who's the closest crew to be able to restore that. That's what's going on right now, and then the future continues to evolve. There's a lot of discussion right now on electric vehicles and charging networks. There's going to be even a lot more data to make sure that the electric vehicles are charging on the off-peak. I think most of the charging is expected to take place in the evenings at home. So again, there's going to be a lot more data. Smart home technology, so that your Alexa or Siri is communicating with your refrigerator, your freezer, all of your smart appliances. And something that's going on right now is distributed generation. We have over 650 members that have a solar array on their farm or their home, and they're actually generating electricity and selling it back to us. And of course, residential battery storage. This is actually a Sonnen residential battery that we have as part of a national pilot, that we have about 8 of these in members' homes looking at data to see how it all works. So what I'm trying to get at here is there's a tremendous amount of data and information. And we have 43 substations throughout our service territory, and anybody that's been down into southeastern Minnesota know that it's beautiful country with a lot of hills and valleys. So it makes it even more challenging to get the data from these endpoints to deliver it back to our office. We originally started out just with utilizing a couple internet links, using a microwave system, and also utilizing cellular VPN connections. It was expensive, and it also had data limitations. If you look at one of the maps here that shows coverage in my energy service territory, you see there's a lot of red, underserved or no served. So that was a big challenge for us just to operate our electric distribution system and getting all this data back, that we are really, really in need of fiber communications. And that's what led us to our partnership to create My Broadband. We reached out and had discussions very early on with Spring Grove Communications, a local telephone co-op, and Mabel Cooperative Telephone Company, another local electric co-op within our service territory. Both of these co-ops have been very progressive and aggressive in building out fiber to the home in their telephone exchanges, and it was just a natural partnership for us to be able to work together. Together, Spring Grove and Mabel owned Harmony Telephone Company, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And we also became a 1/3 owner of Harmony Telephone Company with our partnership. So that's kind of how we started. And the interesting thing about Harmony Telephone Company is that they also had a vast experience in providing fixed wireless broadband service dating back to 2013, which we thought we could utilize to try to cover our area for our data needs, but also our member needs. So this is our tower sites, just to give you a little bit of an idea. The one that's showing up on the bottom is at our in our office in Fresco where we have an existing tower, but we actually have towers in our substation locations to be able to help communicate to provide broadband service to our members, while we are also building out our fiber ring. And you can kind of see what our end goal is to build these fiber rings to communicate with all of our substations. And the little pins that you see there, the little yellow dots, are actually member meters that we're able to communicate that data back and then and get to the substation to be able to pull that back. We're building the AMI and Scada communications network with expandability to not only operate our electric distribution system, but with our partnership with our telephone co-ops to be able to provide broadband service, which is in desperate need to our members. We've been very successful. We received a $5.4 million Reconnect Award. Last year, we received a $9.7 million Reconnect Award in our Iowa territory, which is also reflective of unserved and no service in our Iowa territory. We also get a $715,000 CARES grant that came directly from the state of Iowa last year, with completion due in June of this year. And then we were grateful and humbled to receive a $1.2 million border-to-border broadband grant to build fiber to the home in Fillmore County as part of one of our important rings. There are 44 electric distribution co-ops in Minnesota. When I say distribution, meaning that generally you'll have a generation and transmission co-op, and I'll show you that slide here shortly, that delivers power to the substation. Distribution co-ops like My Energy take the power from the substation and distribute it to all of its members within its service territory. You can see us down in the southeastern part of the state as we go forward. Of the 44 electric distribution co-ops, there's only about 5 that are providing broadband service. Of course, My Energy way down in southeastern Minnesota and Rushford. You have Meeker Electric Co-op in Litchfield. You have Roseau Electric Co-op all the way up north in Roseau. And you have Mille Lacs and Aiken that they've been very progressive. And of course, probably the first one was Arrowhead up in Lutzen that has a very robust system that was very early on. I think the first in Minnesota for electric co-ops. As I mentioned, those were the 44 electric distribution co-ops. There's also a number of generation and transmission co-ops in the state of Minnesota. We are down in the southeastern portion, kind of the pinkish color. We're part of the Dairyland Power Cooperative System. The light blue is Great River Energy, all the way up on top. Up there, you're looking at Minn Kota, and then a little bit to the left, you see Basin Electric, East River, G&Ts out there. This is the expansive transmission network that they have. And when you look at this, many of them are going to the practice of providing maybe fiber on a static wire. And I'm aware of one G&T that in the state of Minnesota that has over 500 miles of fiber on its transmission system already. So you're probably asking, why aren't more electric co-ops involved into the fiber to the home or in the broadband business? And I think the big thing, it really depends on the existing providers in the service territory. If you have somebody where you've got some telcos or cable companies that are providing service in the area, it's being developed. Other areas, again, you look at your membership unserved and underserved. That is kind of an outreach that we're a nonprofit member-owned electric co-op. I think the other thing is it takes a business case. When you're averaging My Energy's case 4 members per mile of line, that's not a great density. In a lot of the other parts of the state, there's electric co-ops that have even fewer members per mile of line going forward. But there's an old adage that when you've seen one electric co-op, you've seen one electric co-op. Everyone is a little bit different, and some are more advanced, some are maybe not yet. Some of the technology being advanced that I highlighted that My Energy is doing, being able to go forward. And there's just some electric co-ops that just want to stick to their core business. So again, that's an individual co-op's perspective. But again, I would really like to highlight that there are electric co-ops in the state of Minnesota that are putting fiber in the ground to be able to deliver broadband service. There are others that are doing it just to operate their electric distribution system. So there is an opportunity here, I think, for a great partnership to be able to work with the electric co-ops to, if they're not involved in providing retail service, that maybe one of the existing providers can lease maybe a couple strands of their fiber to deliver the retail service that they have to have. Cybersecurity is critical to the electric co-op industry. So in many cases, in fact, in our cases, we want to own the fiber to be able to control it and maintain that security level. So when we start looking at it, that maybe there's an electric utility or electric co-op that has fiber to its substations to provide that data, in turn, they would be able to lease that then maybe to a third party. But again, that gets back to the easement issue of being able to provide that partnership to be able to go forward. So again, I am going to be speaking to our statewide electric co-op here in another month to really encourage them to look for partnership opportunities going forward. So that pretty well concludes my presentation, Teddy. I would ask if anybody has any questions. I can't see any chat room here stuff, so.
Yeah. Steve Georgie has a question. Go ahead, Steve.
There you go. Brian, you're talking about 4 customers per mile. Can you tell us about your take rates on the broadband?
We've been, we might say in the early stages. We've rolled this out in just over 2 years. For fixed wireless, we're pushing 700 customers from our towers, but we're just building right now. Our take rate is probably on the lighter side, but the fiber to the home, we're seeing 70 to 80% where we're planning that out. So that is real positive. The big thing is that we're still a relatively new company that we're trying to communicate to let people know who we are.
Just following up on that one, Brian. I mean, so obviously, if you have already energy going to home, for example, I mean, do you get feedback from the customers of who might want to take on, like who wants fiber and who doesn't and all that type of stuff? Does that help in the planning process?
It really does, and that we're asking people to call into our office and request assistance. I've been working in the electric utility industry now for almost 35 years, and I have never had more fun in delivering broadband, meaning that it's a game changer. I'm getting letters from members that have said that it's changed their lives, that they're able to work from home, they're able to provide education for their kids so that kids can do homework at night. And these were people that were thinking that they were going to have to move just to meet the parameters. And this was even before the pandemic on how important broadband is to the area. So it's the calls that we're getting is we just can't get there fast enough, that everybody wants it, and it just takes time to be able to build out.
Steve Georgie, you have another comment or question?
Yeah, Brian, are you planning on overhead expansion, or is this going to be buried or a combo?
Everything that we've done so far has been buried, just underground, and that's where we've had the best luck in being able to do that. The fixed wireless in some of our substations, we have either a 40-foot pole, or we've strategically located maybe a 200-foot tower to provide coverage areas, because again, in some of our areas, the density even gets below 2 members per mile of line. So if we get into those, especially in northeast Iowa, we're to an area where it's fairly level, and when we don't have the terrain that we do in the bluff country, we're able to go out about 10 to 12 miles for fixed wireless coverage, and have been very successful with that.
While we wait for other questions, Brian, I know you talked about easements and all that in the past. Kind of we had meetings. What are some of the challenges you're running into today? You're trying to bring fiber, for example, along with the electric line.
The biggest challenge that we have in relation to the easement is it just takes a lot of time to get out and meet with all of the individual members to get those easements. That we have in many cases a written recorded easement on the electric side. The biggest challenge that I think most of you could relate to is that some of these areas that we built line in 1935, we have a blanket easement over somebody's entire property. That's how they recorded them then. So that is a challenge then that we need to work with that individual. Many of those maybe don't even live in southeastern Minnesota. And it just takes so much time to track them down and to gain a new easement for the broadband. Where we're hoping with the legislation is just to be able to use our electric easement to be able to provide that. And again, I think there's really very few electric co-ops that are in the retail business that can be a partnership opportunity potentially for many others. And a lot of the electric co-ops that may have the fiber in the ground, they in turn can't use that for retail providing, because you can use the fiber that you put into your electric easement to operate your electric distribution system. There's no question, and that is being done in some cases. The challenge comes if you want to use that fiber, if the co-op wants to lease that to somebody else, that you have to have the communication, the easement changed and updated to be able to address communication, to make sure that that encompasses the requirements. There was a lawsuit in Missouri that was the challenge there, is that the co-op built fiber using their existing easements and then ended up going through litigation because it did not encompass the retail providing of broadband.
Nolan has a question or comment?
Yeah, I guess just out of curiosity, what kind of speeds do the customers on fixed wireless see? I would imagine it's probably a range, and it depends on not only the terrain, but the range they are from the tower. But yeah, what kind of speeds are people seeing?
That's a great question, Nolan. And with our area, it really varies. The first, the 100 is not an issue. If we're 100 by 25, or I think 50 by 50 is probably pretty good. But there's also new technology that's coming out that's boosting that to greater extents. And Mr. Wolf could probably comment on that. I think he has more expertise on some of those things. But in a perfect situation, depending on how close they are to the tower, you could get close to maybe 100 by 100, but in many cases we're not able to do that. But you also have to look in our area where somebody has absolutely no service and they're living on a cellular plan to do everything. 25/3 or 50 by 50 is phenomenal that way. But it varies again because of our terrain, because of the hills and the valleys, and we get a lot of tree growth in the area. So it depends, I guess, Nolan, on the location.
Yeah, I know that's not always a straightforward question because, besides what, the infrastructure you have can provide, then you always have the factors inside the home too.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments for Brian? Okay. Well, thank you, Brian. That was really good. Appreciate that. And I think the material that you've made available will also be posted, so people can have access to that. And I'm sure they can ask you questions, whether it's at the task force meeting or offline, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, we're running just a minute ahead of our schedule, but I do see that Tina May has joined us from Land O'Lakes. Yep, and I see Tina as well. Good morning. So we can transition over to Tina. I'll just kind of do a quick intro, and then I'll turn it over to her. One of the topics we wanted to explore as a task force was also some of the work that was going on with what's called the American Connection Project that Land O'Lakes was spearheading, but it's certainly owned by a number of companies, which Tina will cover here in a minute. So the program is managed by Tina. She's the overall leader for that piece. So I'm delighted she was able to come and speak to us about this. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Tina. Maybe you can do a quick intro of yourself and then dive into the American Connection Project.
Yeah, thanks, Teddy. Thanks for the invite to come join you all today for even just a short while. And I'm glad actually that somebody dropped out so I could pinch hit here. So I don't have any slides, but I think that's just fine. We'll just have a conversation. So as Teddy mentioned, I'm Tina May. I'm the VP of Rural Services here at Land O'Lakes and also serve as Chief of Staff. I've been at the cooperative coming up on about 5 years. I joined Land O'Lakes and moved to Minnesota to help us start our sustainability team. I'm a farm kid from the Minnesota-Iowa state line on the Iowa side, but within spitting distance of Minnesota. So don't hold this Iowa thing against me, please. But I've spent the bulk of my career working on agriculture policy in Washington, D.C., on the Senate Agriculture Committee and in various positions at the USDA. So Land O'Lakes launched the American Connection Project exactly 1 year ago this week. Now, there was a lot of work that went into this. So I'll say we've been working on this for about 2 years, but officially and formally the American Connection Project launched 1 year ago this week. Now, a number of you and your organizations are aware of this and are even members of ours and the coalition. So I'll just try and do a level set, and then we can get more into the meat during Q&A. So exactly 1 year ago, when we launched the American Connection Project, what this came out of was Beth Ford, a few years ago when she became our CEO. She went on a very robust listening tour and listening session with our members. And sometimes I say this, and because this is a closed-door meeting, I'll say it to you all. I think because she is a woman and a mother, a parent, she listens differently. And when she was listening to our members talk, what really came through for her was the kitchen table issues. In order to run a successful farm business or a farm-owned cooperative in these small towns that dot the landscape in these communities that we care so much about, it was about the things that they often go without. Access to educational opportunities for their kids. They have to drive a long way for healthcare, right? And fundamentally, what came out at the core of this was access to robust, high-speed, affordable internet. And that's where we decided to start our efforts with the American Connection Project. So what we have done to date is we have built a coalition. It is a coalition today of 143 organizations, from small farmer-owned cooperatives to large organizations like Microsoft and the Mayo Clinic. And what we are advocating for are three things. Number one, a robust investment for broadband infrastructure at the federal level. And we have been forthright in saying that the minimum requirement here is $80 billion, but we know this is between $80 billion and $140 billion problem. The second is coordination at the federal level between the agencies that are going to get this money when this bill ultimately passes. And I think this is a when, not an if. And then the second thing on coordination is between both the federal and the state level. And increasingly, we've also been talking about the local level too with permitting issues. And then third is the mapping issue that I know this group and you all know so much about. Now, when COVID hit, we also did a couple other things. When COVID hit, one thing we did at Land O'Lakes, in our Land O'Lakes owned and leased locations, was to turn on free public Wi-Fi and boost it to our parking lots and get the word out to our local communities through social media and local newspapers. We started really small right away in April of last year at 31 locations. We then asked Land O'Lakes local co-ops to do the same, and then asked members of our coalition to join us. And as more have joined, we've increased. So today we have 2,900 free public Wi-Fi locations turned on in 49 states. And this is something that people have done for free to help their communities. We haven't spent a dime in this. Now, I'll mention too, we have a number of entities that manufacture the products that you need to boost the Wi-Fi signal, have joined us, and they've donated some products to entities like rural libraries that haven't had the funding to do this. Now, we have had a number of rural libraries here in the state of Minnesota join us, and there was some press recently, I believe, that talked about cars sitting in a parking lot on a Sunday at a rural library because it was the only place to get access to Wi-Fi. Now, we've got a couple other things in the hopper that we're excited about launching in 2021. I'll have Teddy update you all as we go. I'm not ready to share that today, but we're building things out as we go. Now, one thing I just want to mention before we do Q&A is what we've learned so far in this effort. One thing in turning on all this Wi-Fi, it's almost like a reverse needs assessment or reverse mapping project. So, for example, we called up Cooperative Extension. There's 3,200 extension offices across the country. You guys know county extension, they're mostly housed. Extension offices are in county seats. There were only 800 offices that had strong enough internet in their own office to be able to boost a signal to the sidewalk or the parking lot behind their office. Right? That's pretty awful. There are also some partners that we have. I'll name Tractor Supply Company. They have thousands of stores across the country, and their low-hanging fruit was only 200, where they only had a good enough signal to start with 180 stores. They have had to upgrade their own speeds in order to turn on and boost this at 800 stores is where they're offering this at today. I'll also mention that when it comes to advocating for this change, having really unlikely partners and bedfellows has been the most interesting, most impactful thing I think we could have done as a coalition. So, for example, we recently had a meeting with Senator Mitch McConnell and his team. And the way we teed this up was we had the Farm Bureau, the Kentucky Farm Bureau, their members. Kentucky Farm Bureau turned on 200 free public Wi-Fi locations at their offices in Kentucky, and we paired them up with the Mayo Clinic. And because we did this, it allowed them to have a differentiated discussion with the senator and his staff about not just broadband infrastructure, but what this can enable and unlock in these communities. And it allowed Mayo to talk about and use the statistics that they have seen in the increase in telehealth access. And as we know, there are a number of barriers as it relates to telehealth and telemedicine. And we're never going to go back, but under these emergency waivers that we've seen during COVID, we are now advocating for those changes to become permanent. So that is the quick overview. I'd love to talk about places where you'd like to go or questions you have for me, or Teddy, I'll ask you if there's anything specifically that you'd like me to cover before I open it up for questions.
Again, for everyone, use the kind of the hand raising feature, and then I'll turn it over to you for the question or the comment. While we're waiting on that, Tina, maybe we can expand a little bit on I mean, I think everybody here is familiar with sort of the work at the state level, but at the advocacy at the federal level, and some of the work we're undertaking there to be able to promote broadband in DC.
Yeah, you bet. So really, we're building out a robust strategy at the federal level, and we've had a number of really good meetings so far since Inauguration Day with the Biden-Harris administration. We, for example, had a guest speaker on a call 2 weeks ago. The White House joined to talk about their priorities for broadband and specifically for rural infrastructure. We're serving as really experts in a place for policymakers to turn and ask us questions. One thing about the right now, here and now, and having this coalition built, and it's something I'm so glad we did and built this out last year during the pandemic, is we really have a once in a 4 to 8 year opportunity right now to influence and build a congressional record as the Biden team gets sworn in and has their confirmation hearings. It's very it can be an easy thing to ask questions for the record, as all the nominees are moving through the Senate confirmation process right now to get them on the record on this set of issues. It's perfect timing, and then it allows us to follow up as we go. Now, we've had really good conversations with the FCC as well, as you would imagine, and USDA. We know USDA needs to staff up, of course. We have also been working quite a bit with Business Roundtable. Beth Ford, our CEO, is on the board of the Business Roundtable, right? They're a group of Fortune 200 companies advocating really only at the federal level. But for example, at the meeting they're having next week, George W. Bush is joining. Beth is going to talk and moderate a panel with 2 members of Congress, and she'll raise these issues. So it's just a good way to get in front of not just policymakers, but other CEOs. And this is where Beth has really spent a lot of her time because Land O'Lakes and Beth too know rural so well, advocating that this is not just a rural issue, that there are underconnected places in every corner of the country that we need to work together to solve this problem. So that's been a bit eye-opening for others too, and a good learning for us.
Thanks, Tina. Questions, comments from the team? Maybe one area that, okay, Mark Johnson has a comment. Go ahead, Mark.
Sure. I'm just on a purely short-term and local level. You mentioned the public Wi-Fi spots with your partners and so on. Do you maintain a list or a database of that information? Is that accessible in any way?
Yep, we do. We if you check out AmericanConnection.io, it's an interactive map that we built kind of quick and dirty on the fly. But that's where the term is.
Thank you.
I'll mention too, we're in the process right now of building out a proper, more formalized website for this whole initiative where that interactive Wi-Fi map will be housed.
Brian has a question.
I just wanted to say thanks for the leadership effort that Land O'Lakes is taking in this, and that of your CEO. I mean, it's drawing attention, it's starting a dialogue, and you get a great partnership base that hopefully can move the needle here to get us some support to carry this through. So thank you.
Well, I scan for a few more. Tina, maybe a quick update. Maybe I know we have some folks from education here, but maybe on the healthcare side, some of the discussions you've had with some of the partners on the coalition and what they're doing from a healthcare perspective.
Yeah, I'll talk about healthcare, and you said education too. I'm actually going to start with education. This was really eye-opening for us. The Department of Education doesn't keep good statistics on the number of schools that are connected and underconnected. We had a pretty eye-opening conversation with them this summer when we were looking into racial equity and the lack of broadband infrastructure and connectivity in communities. And the lack of statistics was shocking, jaw-dropping. So this is something too, as we go forward and work on specific policy in an infrastructure bill as it moves forward, there's work to do to start writing some of this in. On healthcare, we have a healthcare policy working group underneath our coalition, and that's made up of members like Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and Health Partners. They're co-leads. Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Health, Medtronic, right? I think Medtronic is interesting. Both Medtronic and Zoetis, the animal health company, they joined the telehealth working group, and they reached out to us because the devices that they are innovating for both people and animals don't work if you don't have connectivity. So it's a no-brainer. And it's been really interesting to have both of them from the animal and the people side part of this working group with us. What we did right away, I mentioned during COVID with our healthcare partners, and at the beginning of this, we started with 5 partners. We started calling governors because in their emergency powers that they were all working under, they needed to pass waivers to allow access to telehealth over a screen and not just on the phone. And I'm butchering this, but we would like some of that to pass more permanently. Now, there's a pretty robust list underneath that of what the specifics are. But this is really being led, I'll say, by some good Minnesota companies. Mayo Clinic, obviously, Health Partners have been very, very involved, and Blue Cross Blue Shield is just joining. United Health has been with us for a while. American Telehealth Association has been a really important member. One thing that our healthcare partners have said to us is, actually, because of the unlikely partners we have at the table together, they've been able to have more robust conversations and meetings on Capitol Hill than they would have otherwise had on their own, right? So pairing up the users along with those that are running the services has been really helpful to them.
Mark Johnson has another comment or question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I'm sure that as chair, Teddy will, help convey this to us. But Tina, do you have specific things? Are there any things that you can speak to that we can help with from our position as a state group? Is there anything that we should have on our screens?
Yeah, and some of this, I'll be honest with you, Minnesota's already doing. The fact that broadband's already a priority in Minnesota, like, let me use Mississippi. We have been working with governors. We would like every governor to make broadband a priority, because when it comes time when the federal side passes the infrastructure bill, a lot of this will flow through the states, and we want the governors to make this a priority. Now, Mississippi is number 49th in terms of broadband connectivity, and we can't seem to get their attention. Now, there are a lot of communities that are left behind, so we are working with the National Governors Association and their staff very closely on this issue, but we're also taking it to the next level, and we're working with the National Association of Counties, and honestly, we need to get to the mayors, because so much of this, as you know better than I do, it's a local issue in a lot of cases, and sometimes it's local politics and local relationships, and we need to make sure that we're talking to all the right people, and that on the advocacy side of this, the awareness, we're not just stopping at the federal level, that we're taking this all the way through. It's a good question.
Paul has a question or comment?
Yeah, thanks, Teddy. My question is in terms of the coalition's position on how broadband gets to these unserved communities or these rural areas. I remember watching Beth Ford on 60 Minutes a couple of years ago highlighting the power of wireless on some of these farms with the apps and the control of the herds and supply and everything else. So, with so much being done with satellite, Ohio's got a test project now going on with satellite broadband. We've already had a discussion on fixed wireless. This grant program has provided grant money to fixed wireless providers. Does the coalition take a position on that, or is it just anything that gets people better broadband service in the end?
Yeah, thanks for raising this question. I think it's really important. We have not, the coalition has not and will not take a position because we have all sorts in the coalition, and we don't want to pick a winner. You guys know just as well as we do too, here in the state of Minnesota, it's going to take all forms. And at Land O'Lakes, we have a number of pilots going, almost with anyone that wants to pilot with us. But we like to be technology agnostic. We want to try and see how it works. Now, I'll mention to you too, we have been, I feel like I have been hanging from the light fixtures, trying to get pilots in a couple places going. I mentioned Mississippi. The Southeast is so difficult. We're having a very hard time getting pilots going in rural Pennsylvania right now. And honest to God, in the southeastern part of Minnesota, if someone wants to pilot something with us down there, we would love to have a conversation. It's hard. And I think the awareness side of this, and even just saying that out loud, I think can help sometimes. But I'll give you a very specific example. In southeastern Minnesota, we have a dairy farmer who right at the beginning of COVID, her daughter was first generation college kid, and the mother on the farm was making some really difficult family decisions on, do I keep my college kid home on the farm without any access to the internet? Because we can't get any. There's no provider. It's just junk in that geography down there. Or do I keep her in her college town where I know she's got good broadband, but we don't know, at the time, right, we didn't know about the impact of COVID and what that would mean for the health of her daughter. So we saw families all over the state make decisions like that, but we saw it firsthand with some of our farmers here too. Hey, Nolan, do you have a question?
I don't think I had my hand up.
I think it's just in the video, so no worries.
Okay. Oh, it's his regular, it's like his name is his hand.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Tina? All right. I'm not seeing any other hands up, Tina. I appreciate you in a very short notice to be able to come and speak to this group. I think that was helpful. And we may even have you again come up and give us an update in the future on what's happening with the coalition and for others. I mean, Maybe they'll plug in quick here, Tina. What if some organizations are interested in joining the coalition? What's the process? What are the fees? What goes into it?
Yep, I'll make my pitch. If you are interested in joining, shoot me a note. Shoot Teddy a note. I will tell you that this is different from other coalitions in terms of DC-based coalitions. We are managing this all ourselves, all in-house. We did not contract with a lobbyist or set this up as a separate 501c3 or C4. We are doing this because this is an issue that matters to our members and our owners here at the cooperative. And it's different. And because we show up, our coalition members and partners show up too. So we've noticed that just in the structure of this, we have a lot of interest in people are joining up in full force in our weekly calls. There is no cost to join at this time. We'd love to have you. Both on the policy coalition and if you're interested in turning on free public Wi-Fi. Now, I'll mention just one last thing. In all of our efforts so far over the last year, one of the things we've really learned and we're frankly nervous about going forward is the lack of community readiness, specifically in rural small towns. As we've seen like CARES Act money come, we know some of these small towns just expect connectivity to be bad, and they don't know how to go after the funding. So we're thinking about how to build technical assistance resources for these communities to help empower and enable them, and really to teach them how to go after some of this funding, and honestly to get ready, because the money's going to come. Right? It's a when, not an if. So that's one of the things we're working on behind the scenes as we go forward. And I think that's one thing maybe, Teddy, we could notify this group on as we go and build it out. So thank you. And thanks to you all too, I'll say, for taking your time and your resources to be on this task force. And to be engaged. It's making a difference, and I think Minnesota is really leading a lot of other states. And I know in our work with the National Governors Association, it's important for us to be able to point to Minnesota to say, hey, look at what we're doing or what Minnesota's doing, to show and highlight you all and your efforts with other states and governors. So it certainly matters, and thank you for everything you have been putting into this.
Thank you, Tina. Appreciate the time again. I know it was very short notice, and thanks for coming and speaking to the group. I know a lot of folks took some out of this. So, okay. So we're running a little early, but not too much. So let's do this. Let's take a 15-minute break, and it's 11:15 now. So we'll get back together at 11:30 for the last segment of our conversation.